back again with Rosie Page, daughter of Alf White, OBE, alias James Herriot. Rosie, thanks for coming again. Good to see you.
My pleasure, John.
Thank you for agreeing to contribute to this series. We're really enjoying your personal views of your father and the family and the veterinary practice and so on that we're hearing about. And I think one of the things you've said to us in the past is that your father was very modest and he didn't really want to be recognised when he became famous.
No.
It was not something he was aiming for.
No.
But tell us, were there times when he was recognised, and anything you can remember from?
Yes, it was very infrequent, him being recognised. And he had the big plus of being able to go around anywhere he liked, abroad or locally, and people didn't know him. They'd know his name, but not his face. And this was quite deliberate on his half. Whereas, for instance, Peter Wright, the vet, I had occasion to go and have a coffee with him in close pal I'm very fond of Peter and Lynn.
Peter, who trained with your father.
Peter, who trained
Yes,
with Dad.
yes. Mm.
And he's on the telly all the time. Mm-hmm. So Dad never was recognised. Peter is always recognised. And in the cafe we went to, the woman said, "Oh, behind the counter, I'm starstruck," you know. And he's very gracious and talks to them very nicely, but he's recognised all the time.
Yes.
He copes with it very well. My father would have hated that.
Right, he had that, different personality for that.
Different personalities. Peter much more outgoing. Yeah.
Was that, that was part of his, obviously his makeup, but you were saying as well, there were times when he would be recognised and he would then embrace it in a certain way.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and I mean, if he was recognised, which I say was seldom, he was very gracious. But I used to go on holidays with him because I came home, as it were, left my husband when Emma was a baby, my daughter, and so we went lots of holidays together, and often to the north of Scotland, dog-friendly hotels.
Yes.
And we had a most marvellous time because the four of us, Mum, Dad, Emma and I, we always got on like a house on fire. We did an awful lot of laughing. We had a marvellous time. But the routine was that after dinner, mm-hmm. Dad and I would get the dogs out of the car because they were allowed to go to bed with us in the bedroom, and we'd take them for their last walk around the grounds. And this hotel in Scotland, we were walking around the grounds very soon after Dad's dog story book came out.
Yeah, not one of his novels, not one of his
it was Dad's dog stories. Well, it was stories, but it was
yes.
the doggy ones.
Yes, yeah.
There was a separate book.
That's right, yeah.
Which had both my Labrador and his Border Terrier on the lovely picture of him on the front.
Another
so
one,
we were walking round this hotel grounds, and this man stopped us, and he said, and I'm not good at the Scottish accent, but he said to Dad, "Excuse me, but are you not James Herriot?" And Dad said, "Well, yes." He said, "I am, but it's not often people recognise me." And he said, "Oh, 'twasna you I recognised, it was the twa dogs." And he'd just read that dog story book. It was very rare that he was actually recognised for his face.
Because in that case, his face was on the
That was one of the few
cover.
books that at that time, that had his face on, and the two dogs were the things that stuck. I suppose Labrador Border Terriers are quite unusual mix, so yes.
Which was his favourite dog?
Oh, Jim and I agree on this. Mm-hmm. One of the common, you were asking me earlier, what people ask us about Dad was often, what would be his favourite animals? I mean, he loved all the animals and cared for them in a wonderfully caring way that was part of his nature.
Yes. Yeah.
But it would always be dogs.
Right.
He absolutely loved dogs, and of course, especially his own dogs.
Yes, of course.
He loved them all. But his favourite, we both agree, was a Jack Russell. I was 18 when we got Hector the Jack Russell. Hector. Hector was your archetypal terrier. He was a naughty puppy, and a real character, little of size but big in character. Yeah, I'll take you on, And we all adored Hector, and the farmers adored Hector. Hector became a stud dog Very much so.
Right.
He was very popular because he was such a nice little dog.
Yeah.
He was a gentle little dog, but feisty.
Yes, yeah.
In fact, Dad gave himself a frozen shoulder once because he didn't like being left in the car, Hector. And he would go with him everywhere. And he was down in the well, opposite the passenger well.
Oh, yeah, in the car, yeah.
Recording his displeasure to Dad by barking his head off. And, it meant, what the hell did you mean by going off and leaving me in here, sort of thing,
Yes.
And Dad got to a stage, he was driving to the next farm, and he'd be swiping at him, saying, Hector, shut up, Hector,
Yes, yeah.
And
Stop your noise,
they thought that was why he got a frozen shoulder. He had a bad left shoulder. Anyway, but Hector was a gorgeous character, and Dad, at the age of, Hector would be about 5, he lost his sight. Oh. He had a very rare dry eye disease, and he went and had an operation at Glasgow University, but he remained pretty well blind, but lived till he was 14. But he knew his area.
Yes.
If you moved a chair, he'd walk into it. But otherwise, he carried on a very good life until, as I say, he was nearly 14. And it was the first, and only seen my father cry very few times. He wept to buckets when he came back from Granville Bennett.
Oh, he'd gone to Granville, had he? Yeah.
And Hector had to be put down. And Granville, Dad hadn't the heart to bring him home even. Granville, Denton Petty, buried him in his garden at Aldborough.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he'll be still there.
Hector's still there,
But Hector, he loved all his dogs.
Is Hector the dog he's holding on in the statue?
I think it is. It isn't a terribly good effigy of the dog, but partly because, of course, it's monochrome, I should say.
Yeah.
And really, Hector, by nature, he was very black and white.
Sure.
So I don't think it's a particularly good representation of Hector.
But the statue of your father is... Jim's told us that. Yes. You and he didn't want that statue originally.
We did not, because Dad didn't even like his picture taken, let alone the statue. And this is credit to Ian Ashton, who has been Mr. World of James Herriot for a lot of years. But he said, no, it'll be good, and it'll bring people in. And we, again, were very wrong, and Ian was right. But you needed the right sculptor.
Yes.
And the sculptor was a man called Sean Hedges Quinn from Suffolk. And by coincidence, he did the statue of Bob Stokoe, who was the Sunderland manager when they won the Cup in 1973. And that was Sean Hedges Quinn.
So there's a real
bond there. But that was an accident. We didn't particularly know that.
Sure. A happy one.
Sorry?
a happy coincidence. Yeah.
He also did the beautiful one of Captain Mannering at Wormslow, sitting on a seat.
Right.
I think that was the one that when we looked at it, oh my God, he's good. And he made a marvellous job. He employed us. I mean, we went down to his studio and he said, now, what's wrong? And so he'd got a big dimple in his chin. And it was in clay, so he just took his finger and went, we'll get rid of that. And,
So you saw that actually being made?
Yes,
which is really,
we saw it in clay.
Yes.
And it was a very bizarre feeling because he said, take a closer look. So I stood on this thing, and eye to eye with this clay effigy of my father. And it was some things we could actually definitely alter.
Yes, but you could
see... From the side, it is perfect. The stance is perfect. The one thing is, I would say, is that Dad had a fatter face. We should have noticed that than the statue has.
Well, perhaps it's a younger version of it.
But it's pretty damn good when you see some of the terrible ones that have come up.
Oh, yes.
Eric Morecambe and Ronaldo.
Ronaldo's the famous one, isn't it? Yes.
No, we were very lucky. He was a lovely fella and he did a lovely job.
Good, yeah.
And it now stands almost like a shrine, I think, in the garden of the World of James Herriot. And you have to go into the World of James Herriot to see it. In the place he lived and worked. It's very private.
Yes,
so it's as private as a statue in a high wall garden.
Yeah. It's in a really good place.
It is.
And lots of people have loved to come and have their photographs taken with him. Yeah.
They have.
Yeah. So, Rosie, we've talked about the World of James Herriot becoming run privately after the council had it. And at the time, it started with around about 15,000 visitors a year coming to visit. That was from a higher figure in earlier years. But Now it's around about 50,000 a year. What do you think about that?
Well, it's an amazing turnaround, and I've stressed what a wonderful place it is to visit. But you have to credit Ian Ashton first, for starting doing something which must have been hard work from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And not just Ian, his choice in picking people to work there, his idea, the statue was his idea.
Yes.
And I mean, it has been a wonderful addition. You know, he is a businessman, he knows what's going to work. But more importantly than that, we have now, if I could sort of jump forward to now, we have a most wonderful team. And it isn't just Ian, it is people whose heart, I think, is in the whole Herriot ethos. And we have yourself as a marketer. We have Neil, our wonderful man who understands IT. Yeah. Those oldest certainly don't. And some marvellous staff behind the counter. They are vital.
Yeah.
They come in, and every time I come in unbidden, I notice how marvellous they are behind the desk at being pleasant to people.
Yes.
Absolutely super pleasant. So important. So there's a team who not only have their heart in it, I feel, and are proud of the success that they've contributed to, but who also get on with each other.
Yes.
You all like each other.
We do.
and that's fantastic, you know, and there have been occasions when there've been one or two little sort of blips in terms of personalities many years ago now, and you might not even remember it, but Ian will. But now we have a team who love doing the job, who do it wonderfully well, and seem to enjoy and be proud of what they've done. And that thrills me. Yeah.
Talking about the world of James Herriot, which is really your original home.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about your feelings about the time it was opened in 1999. That was some years, 2 or 3 years after your father passed away. And we know that there was a lady at the council who was championed the idea, June Imerson, who championed the idea of buying the house and then opening it as the world of James Herriot. Tell us about your thoughts about that at the time.
Well, June, I mean, she's not long died.
No.
But she was the force at the council, and she came upon quite a bit of opposition, I think.
Yeah.
She fought for it. So yes, I mean, we liked the idea of it happening. Of course we did. It's become a most marvellous memory of all of his working life. And if anybody hasn't been to it, they do not realise how much is in there. It is really, it looks like that much, but it's long, and it's got 2 stories, and it takes a long time to look at all the information in there.
Yes, it's been described to me by visitors as being like Doctor Who's TARDIS. There's a lot more in there than you realise.
A lot of stuff to see, and for all sorts of types, including a veterinary museum, which is the only one in Britain, which has ancient, horrible instruments that look as if they're instruments of torture from the old-fashioned days.
Yes, quite a few of those have been loaned to the TV company to use in the filming. Yeah,
they have. Yeah. But when I first went in there, my mother was still alive. She was a huge help.
To the production of it.
Because she could, of course, remember it very vividly.
Yeah.
I've said I was 6 when I left. Jim remembers it a bit better because he would be 10. But when my mother went round, she'd obviously helped them with what was where. But when she went to the finished article, that first room on the left, that was our sitting room.
Yes.
That was the one, and she had a tear in her eye.
Did she?
Yeah. Because that was the room most like what she remembered.
What she remembered from living there.
From living there, yes. Yeah. But the whole of that ground floor, they've replicated what it was like. And I mean, it was very similar when we lived there to the original surgery where Siegfried, Tristan and James lived on their own, you know, and the stairs are the very stairs, of course, that they ran down to the only phone in the house, which was in the hall
From the top floor.
From the top floor. So there's an awful lot of authenticity there.
Yes,
and they've done a marvellous job at making that look like it would in that era. Right down to the particularly impresses me, that it's the same tiling on the floor from the front door
through
as
to the
was right
through
through
to
to the
kitchen.
back,
Yeah.
which was there when I was a kiddie.
Yeah.
And before I was born,
Yeah.
and which has had countless pores running along it for however many years.
Yeah.
It shows they made things to last. And the front door is the same door. The sneck on it fascinates me because you will know you will know that the sneck makes a very characteristic
That's
noise.
right. Yeah.
Click. And I used to think when I was little, and this is an early memory, somebody's at the door. And I would go rushing to see who it was. And Jim says the same as me, that sneck, as we would call it,
Your signal.
makes a noise which takes us back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a sound memory.
It is.
Literally a sound
very
memory.
much so. Yeah.
So you saw the opening of the World of James Herriot
Indeed.
in 1999, and it was successful. And it then started to have a period when it was doing less well. I mean, the TV series had finished by the time it opened.
Yes.
What did you feel about that? About the fact that it was potentially going to close?
Well, there was a long period when we used to go to council meetings.
Yeah.
And the council were very reluctant to keep it going because it was badly run. And I say that quite, openly, because it was being run by people trained in museums, but not in marketing. And it needed a business hand to get hold of it.
Yes. Yeah.
And Ian Ashton used to go to those meetings. And he persuaded them, look, we need this for our area. We need the Herriot link.
Recognising what had already happened.
Indeed.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was going down the nick. And it was costing the council money, which they didn't think was worth it. And so Ian took it upon himself bravely, because then Ian be 70, at least. And he must have wanted it like a hole in the head, really. But he took it on, and Ian's a businessman. Ian said, right, why is there six computers here? We only need 2. And why have we got all these, he just saw that we were...
The different way of running it.
A completely different way. And he ran it like a business.
And you and Jim helped him to do that?
Well,
You
as
got
much as
involved.
we could. They were not business people.
No, but you were supportive.
We hopefully were and are, because we want it to succeed. We want everything that keeps Dad's memory alive to succeed, and that is what that place does.
Yes.
And gradually he brought it round. And then, of course, that coincided with the Yorkshire Vet starting. And that, we have to admit, was a huge help. It's a great plus that Peter Wright was brought up there as a vet.
Yes.
He knew it very well as his workplace. But at the start of every Yorkshire Vet programme, there is a wonderful advert, without knowing it or meaning it, for the World of James Herriot.
Yes.
And a picture of Thirsk looking at its most picturesque.
Well, Ian comes into play there again, because it was him that persuaded them to do it, wasn't it?
It was.
Yes, yeah.
It was. And it was wonderful that the local practice, including Peter, who, as I say, knew everything about Dad in terms of his working life.
Yes.
So, yes, and that gradually was pulling it round. Because the Yorkshire Vet people used to look at that and think, oh, yeah, we like James Herriot. We might, and it very visibly started to come up.
Yes.
And then there was the New All Creatures.
But tell me, there was also a TV series by the BBC about your father's early life.
Oh, it was ghastly.
Were you involved in that at all?
Yes.
Yeah, and...
I didn't want it, Jim did. That was the long and the short of it.
Right, yeah.
Jim thought it would do good for the Herriot thing, and I'm sure he meant it rightly. I said, look, they could do anything they like with this, because Dad isn't there to defend himself, and we only knew what we knew from
of course.
Dad.
You weren't...
And in the end, it was ghastly. We hated it. And it was... I won't go into detail. It pains me even to think about it. We were very pleased when the BBC said, no, we don't want more.
I was going to say, do you think that influenced the BBC's decision not to recommission All Creatures Great and Small?
Oh, not at all.
No.
I don't think it was to do with that.
No, okay. Right.
At all.
I just wondered.
Because we used to try and get them to put the old series back on
Back
proper
on.
TV, as opposed to when it still is being watched on these funny channels like UTV, or I don't know
YouTube,
what they're called. No. Anyway, no, I don't think that influenced it. But it certainly influenced Jim and I's caution.
I see, yeah.
About having a New Old Creatures.
Mm-hmm.
We were extra cautious.
Because that
was so horrid.
Yeah.
And our job, while we're still alive, which isn't for that much longer, we're both old, but, you know, we want to protect Dad's legacy and make it do as much good as it can.
Yes.
And part of that is not to have such awful content that they
want the
had
content to be
written
authentic.
without our approval.
Yes, yeah.
And,
well, you've said already that some of the content of the current show isn't necessarily what was in the stories,
No,
but it's
but it's
actually
nice.
it has
It's good.
The essence of it all.
The right essence, you're quite right.
Yeah.
But no, and of course then we very cautiously took up the playground offer. Mm-hmm. And we took a bit of persuading. We'd had various offers before of various people wanting to make a New Old Creatures. We had one man come up, I can see him sitting in my kitchen, and he was a very smooth talker, and he was a company who took over the whole of the rights.
Okay.
And this person, that company had taken over Agatha Christie, so from her estate.
I see.
And so they wanted to do a whole lot of Herriot stuff, and they would give us a lot of money, but that would be the end of our involvement. And they were offering big bucks. Mm-hmm. But then he was being awfully persuasive, and then he was sitting there and he got carried away with it all, and he said, you know, Herriot is very flexible, isn't it? We could set it in Gloucestershire. We could set it in France. Jim and I caught one another. That was the end of him.
Right.
That was the end of him.
Yeah.
And one of the main things, if ever we were going to let someone do it, would be that it was set in Yorkshire.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, it equals Yorkshire.
Yeah. Herriot country.
They're integral. And I mean, so, yes, we turned that down. We turned one or two other offers down. One man I thought was going to make a real good job, but he wasn't, I don't think it washed with the agents who were much more, they had to cross every I and cross every T and dot an A.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, this is a nice man, he would do it as well as he possibly could.
Yes.
But Playground have.
Yes.
They have done it very well.
So your explanation of that is actually in the spirit of your father, because I know from Jim's discussions we've had about his view about not going to live in a tax haven and that kind of thing. Money wasn't the object originally. It was a nice thing to have, but quite a lot of it went to the Exchequer anyway.
That's what he used to say, yes. That isn't why. He thought he got his OBE because he contributed so much to HMRC.
Yes. So your decision with Jim on that occasion seems a similar...
Same thing.
In a similar vein,
You
really.
want to preserve it. And in Dad's case, of course, he wanted to stay living where he loved to live.
Yeah.
And if he had to pay those taxes, which was 83% in those days, he did it.
Yeah.
Which is why he never made as much money as he... But he had enough to make him secure, to make us secure.
Yeah.
He never made as much as people would thought, because at his height of his fame, he was paying 83%.
Yes.
And he refused to go to Jersey, and he refused to do things they wanted to play around with money and then make more and then give it to the He put it in a... It makes any accountant shake to think of the fact that he put that money in an account which made, unearned interest, made 1%.
Right.
Was taxed at 99%.
Yes, yeah.
And but he got to stay where he wanted to, with all the things that he wanted to stay in Yorkshire. He wanted to be near his family, he wanted to be near his football club, he wanted to have his dogs with him.
Yeah.
And
all the things he loved.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm absolutely on his side that he left so much money.
So when people go to the world of James Herriot and they see, I mean, we know the route. You and I know the route through the house and the additions that were put in there. They see a number of different aspects of it. Which bit of it do you think is the one you'd like them most to remember in there?
I don't know. There's several bits that hit me.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably would say the sitting room.
Yes.
I mean, they do have on the floor there Ludo and
things you were doing.
things which I would be doing.
Yeah.
They have an Eagle magazine.
Yes.
We used to have Eagle. I used to have Swift, not Girl. I'm so old, you won't remember even that job. But, you know, it does, like Mum said, it takes you back to actually living there.
Yeah.
But so does so many things in other rooms. And there are bits of ours that are artifacts in there.
Real things that were yours.
The sideboard
Yes.
in the office,
That's original.
That's
Yeah.
original.
Yeah.
There are several little bits of silver and that were there. There was an Aladdin's lamp, if you can picture it on the sideboard
Yes,
there.
yeah,
That
yeah.
was everywhere where we were.
Yes, yeah.
So there's things in every room that I think, gosh, I remember. Yeah.
Again, back to authentic things. that
Back to
people want
authentic
see.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think your father would think of the world of James Herriot?
Well, I think, like all the things that have come after he died, thankfully he did see how successful he was before he died.
Yes, yeah.
And he did know how many people respected and loved him and got pleasure. These people that got the comfort and the joy from it,
Sure.
He did know. Like a lot of other famous in the way past didn't. But he did know how successful he was. But he would like to think it's carrying his legacy, I think, on.
Yeah.
He'd be proud of the things that have happened through his legacy.
Yes.
And he couldn't fail but enjoy the word of James Herriot. I mean, there's something for everybody, but if he could look at it, I'm sure he'd just think it was wonderful. And he'd be uber proud of, because he was a sort of adopted Thirsk man.
Yes,
He'd be
yeah.
proud of it, he'd be proud of his whole life in Thirsk, because he was very much a resident of Thirsk, even though he was...
It was his home.
Yeah, it was very much his home. He'd be very proud.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Rosie.
It's been my pleasure, John.
Thank you so much for everything you've shared with us today.
That's okay.
Maybe we can do this again soon.
I wouldn't mind. I've got so much in here, you know.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.